great practitioner of mannerism, a style which featured bizarre compositions through colors that were exaggerated and figures set in unusual positions, Bronzino created a striking example of exactly that with his allegorical painting produced between 1540 and 1550. At first glance, it is a beautiful visual. However, a viewer's admiration is quickly replaced with disgust by the disturbing realization that the central figures are Venus and her son, Cupid. Through different arrangements, the figures, even small attributes, take on new meanings, altering the overall allegory. So searching for quick answers to better understand this puzzling painting is not simply presented, for one thing just leads to another. The painting includes 7 figures, with Venus and Cupid being 2 figures we can identify with certainty. Venus being identified by being a female nude front and center, the doves, the golden apple she won in Paris, and as though disarming him, she holds an arrow in her other hand, one stolen from her son Cupid. Other than the arrow, we know this figure to be Cupid due to his wings. However, here he is shown as an adolescent rather than an infant. The masks at the right of Venus's feet have been seen as symbolizing vices, as well as symbols of deception or concealed identity, all creating an erotic and incestuous scene that is representing sin and, in other cases, male and female sexuality. The laughing child on the right, about to throw petals at the central pair, is oblivious of the thorns piercing his foot. This figure is seen as folly or foolish pleasure. Lurking in the shadows directly behind him is the head of a girl, but on the body of a serpent, with the legs of a lion and with the tail end of a scorpion. Illuminated is her left hand, which tilts back away from viewers looking anatomically disordered. She holds in this hand the stinger attached to her tail. In her right hand, she holds a honeycomb, a traditional symbol of sweetness, pleasure, and temptation, but in her other hand is the price to pay for such. With sweet temptation and evil consequence present within one body, this figure is interpreted by many to represent fraud or deceit. Presenting a representation of a sphinx, she additionally holds significance to ignorance. Such lustfulness like that in the central scene leads an individual into a life of pleasure-taking. If a person is to remain in such an ignorant state of mind, pursuing such dishonest living, one will eventually find themselves being fatally punished. Here, an image of Eve cannot fail to be summoned due to the juxtaposition present between the girl's serpent tail and the apple Venus holds. Together they allude to viewers that Venus and her quartz world is quite dangerous. Between her drapery and that of the curtain the figure above her holds exists an echo, one about the exposure of an unpleasant truth. Due to the hourglass and wing, this figure is not in question. This is Father Time. His actions, however, are debated. Is he exposing the scene or is he seeking to hide it? Does he do this in anxious regard toward the figure across from him? Some suggest that the painting as a whole may be expressing a cycle of the ages of love. In this sense, time has taken its toll through the momentary nature of sensual pleasure, contrasting the enduring quality of virtue, a possible identity for the figure across from him. Others suggest that the painting as a whole may be operating as a psychomachia, pitting time and virtue, who represent divine reason, against Venus and Cupid, who are representing lust. However, this possible figure of virtue across from time is actually one of the most contentious figures in the painting. Being the most argued figure, her identity, action, expression, mask-like quality, interaction with time, and the symbolism for the laurel that surrounds the figure has not been clearly understood nor defined. She has been interpreted to be virtue, oblivion, night, fraud, and even truth. Sometimes referred to as vaguely as time's companion, the female figure at the upper left-hand corner is sometimes seen to be independently unveiling the scene, sharing in the act of unveiling with time, or trying to cover it. The fact that the corner she is painted in is very dark makes trying to identify her more complicated. Below is a figure who is grasping at their head in agony. Many in the beginning saw this figure to be jealousy or envy, but some see the figure's gesture alluding to one of the last stages of the late 20th century venereal disease, syphilis, which was tied to the goddess of love, Venus. With this, the allegory becomes a kind of call-out about the cost of pleasure that time reveals. On one side, we have temptation and foolish pleasure, and on the other, insane regret. With this in mind, some believe the other figures in the scene may also be displaying signs of the disease, like tabes dorsalis, and optic nerve damage and dementia. But perhaps Bronzino is not simply expressing this or that in this overtly erotic painting. Perhaps he has presented a piece with a cumulative meaning, layering multiple moralizing messages with aspects of pleasure and pain, and suggestions of lust, deceit, and jealousy. Overall, Bronzino's complex painting is a mystery for a viewer to unravel.